Welcome back to Peaceful Soul. I'm truly grateful that you've chosen to spend a few quiet minutes here with me this morning. If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance that your mornings have felt heavier than you'd like them to be. Maybe you wake up, stare at the ceiling, and feel your heart sink before your feet even touch the floor. It's not weakness, it's not laziness, it's your body and mind sending out a signal that something deeper needs attention. What you're experiencing is something we call morning depression. And trust me, it's more common than most people realize. Many of my patients describe mornings as this thick, gray wall they have to push through just to start their day. Yet by afternoon, the fog lifts a little. They feel lighter, maybe even hopeful again. So what's really happening inside us each morning? The answer isn't about willpower. It's about biology, specifically your body's circadian rhythm. Think of it as an invisible clock that coordinates thousands of chemical reactions: when to sleep, when to wake, when to eat, and even when to release certain hormones. When the first light hits your eyes, signals travel to the hypothalamus, then to your adrenal glands, which release cortisol, a hormone that helps us wake up and focus. But for people struggling with morning depression, that system misfires. Cortisol doesn't wake them, it overwhelms them. Instead of feeling alert, they feel heavy, anxious, and emotionally frozen. I once treated a patient named Emily, a 34-year-old elementary school teacher. She told me that every morning felt like a private battle. When the alarm rang, she didn't feel sad, she felt nothing. "It's like someone's placed the whole world on my chest," she said. But as the day went on, that numbness slowly faded. I explained to Emily that morning depression isn't a character flaw. It's a biological imbalance. When our circadian rhythm gets thrown off by chronic stress, poor sleep, or even genetics, the brain loses its sense of timing. A Harvard study found that people with morning depression have cortisol levels up to 40% higher than average during the first 2 hours after waking. Their nervous system isn't gently easing into the day. It's being slammed with stress hormones before the mind can even catch up. If you've felt this way, please know this. You're not alone. I've been there too. I've had mornings when the world felt too heavy to face. But once I understood that this wasn't my fault, that it was my body asking for help, I started to heal. Through science, patience, and compassion, I learned that healing begins the moment we stop blaming ourselves. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into why the brain reacts so differently in the morning versus at night, the role of cortisol and the hypothalamus, and why some people wake up feeling crushed while others don't. Most importantly, we'll talk about the small, practical steps you can take to bring balance back to your mornings, so each day begins not with dread, but with light. Morning sounds like the simplest part of the day. Wake up, take a deep breath, and start again. But for many people, that's the hardest moment, the one they quietly dread. One patient once told me, "Doctor, every morning feels like reliving the same storm. The sunlight through my curtains doesn't bring hope, it brings panic." And that feeling has a biological reason. While we sleep, the brain never truly shuts down. It organizes memories, repairs cells, and regulates hormones. As dawn arrives, cortisol, our wake up hormone, rises to prepare us for action. But in people with an HPA axis imbalance, cortisol spikes too early or too strongly. The body reads it not as "wake up," but as "something's wrong." Before you even get out of bed, your heart races, your muscles tense, and your mind feels overwhelmed. A Stanford University study found that in people with morning depression, cortisol levels rise about 45 minutes earlier than normal. Their nervous systems switch into fight or flight, but with no real threat. The body defaults into a third state, freeze. That's the heavy, paralyzing stillness that makes getting out of bed feel impossible. One of my patients, Mark, a 39-year-old software engineer, described it perfectly. "When my alarm goes off, I don't feel sleepy, I feel non-existent." His body was awake, but frozen, a textbook example of hypoarousal, where the sympathetic system overfires while the parasympathetic can't stabilize it. Another piece of the puzzle is social jet lag, the misalignment between your biological clock and society's schedule. Some people are natural night owls. Their brains simply function better late at night. But the world runs on early hours. And over years, that forced mismatch wears the system down. The result is a form of circadian depression, driven not by sadness, but by rhythm gone wrong. A 2022 study in the Journal of Affective Disorders revealed that people who sleep 2 hours later than average face a 67% higher risk of depression. It's as if they live in a different time zone, while everyone else is in daylight. They're still in the dark. At the center of it all is the hypothalamus, the brain's timekeeper. When chronic stress or lack of morning light disrupts it, the body loses its rhythm. The day no longer begins in harmony, it starts out of tune. Researchers at Cambridge University recently found that morning depression is often tied to low-grade neuroinflammation. Patients who felt worse in the mornings showed elevated IL-6 levels, an inflammatory marker, right before dawn. So even as you sleep, your body might be fighting a quiet internal battle. But here's what matters most. This imbalance can be fixed. Your body isn't betraying you, it's trying to protect you. It just hasn't realized the danger has passed. When you start to understand that, mornings no longer feel like punishment, they become a dialogue between you and your biology. In the next part, we'll explore real, evidence-based ways to reset your rhythm, using light, movement, nutrition, and sleep. Because healing doesn't always mean doing more, sometimes it means beginning your day differently. When people think about depression, they usually think of feelings, sadness, hopelessness, loss of motivation. But in truth, depression doesn't start in the mind. It begins in the body. And in the morning, when your biological clock hasn't fully synced up, those chemical reactions inside you can make it feel like you're fighting against yourself. One of the most silent yet powerful triggers is low-grade inflammation in the brain and body. Studies show that people with depression, especially those who feel worse in the mornings, often have higher levels of interleukin-6, IL-6, and C-reactive protein, CRP. These are inflammatory messengers released by the body when it's under stress or out of rhythm. Interestingly, IL-6 peaks just before sunrise, the very moment many people report feeling their lowest. So if you've ever felt that heavy, crushing weight each morning, it's not just in your head. Your body is, in fact, inflamed, as if it's fighting an invisible illness. This inflammation can come from many sources: poor sleep, processed food, chronic stress, or artificial light disrupting your circadian rhythm. I once treated a patient named Lana, a 31-year-old marketing executive. Every morning, she woke up with a foggy head and aching muscles. Even on good days, her tests showed elevated CRP levels. After 3 months of small changes, gentle walks in the morning sun, earlier bedtimes, more vegetables and omega-3 fats, her morning depression almost disappeared. Lana's story reminds us that the mind and body are one system. When the body is inflamed, the mind can't stay calm. Sleep disruption is another major factor. In our screen-filled world, we sleep less and later than ever. Blue light from phones and laptops suppresses melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain it's time to rest. When melatonin release is delayed, you may still be asleep internally while cortisol starts rising. The result? You wake up groggy, anxious, and disconnected. Worse yet, sleep loss increases both cortisol and IL-6, locking the body into a cycle of stress and exhaustion. Genetics also play a role. The RORA gene, which helps regulate circadian rhythm, often behaves differently in people with depression. When it's out of sync, it's like living in the wrong time zone. You're awake, but out of rhythm with the world around you. And then there are thyroid hormones and vitamin D, both crucial for energy and mood. Low thyroid function slows everything down, making mornings feel like dragging through mud. Low vitamin D, which many people develop from lack of sunlight, lowers serotonin, the feel-good brain chemical that helps you feel alert and balanced. No wonder people working long hours indoors often say, every morning feels like walking through fog. Different causes, one shared feeling: waking up heavy, empty, and unready, as if your body is whispering, not today. And here's what I want you to take away. You're not weak, you're not lazy, you're not broken. You're simply living in a body that needs to find its rhythm again, like a piece of music waiting to be tuned back into harmony. Morning isn't just the start of a new day, it's a chance to reset your body and mind. Morning depression isn't an ending, it's a signal that your inner rhythm needs tuning, like a song slightly out of key that just needs to be played back in harmony. The first and most powerful method is natural light. A Harvard study found that just 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight exposure within the first hour after waking can rebalance your circadian rhythm, lower cortisol, and boost serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter. One of my patients, Sarah, worked from home and rarely opened her blinds. When she began stepping outside each morning and letting sunlight touch her skin and eyes, her morning heaviness dropped by nearly 70% within 2 weeks. No medication, no therapy, just light. The second method is gentle movement. You don't need intense workouts, just 10 minutes of slow walking, stretching, or deep breathing is enough to wake up your brain. Research published in JAMA Psychiatry shows that light morning exercise activates the brain's motivation circuits while calming the amygdala, the center of fear and anxiety. One of my patients, Michael, once said, "When I started walking in the morning with music, the sky felt bigger." Sometimes, the smallest shifts bring the greatest change. Third, focus on temperature and breath. When you wake, your body temperature is low and circulation is slow. A warm glass of water, a short breathing session, or a warm shower can gently bring your system online. Scientists at the University of Tokyo found that the 4-7-8 breathing technique, inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8, significantly reduces morning anxiety and synchronizes the heart and brain rhythms. For those who struggle to even get out of bed, start with micro habits, tiny steps that lower the mental barrier. Instead of, "I'll wake up early and run," try, "I'll sit up and drink a sip of water." Your brain doesn't distinguish between small and big wins when releasing dopamine. Once you take the first step, motivation follows. And finally, perhaps the most powerful tool, the way you talk to yourself. Many people wake up with automatic self-criticism. "I can't do this. It's going to be another bad day." But replacing them with gentler phrases like, "I'm trying," or "just one small step today," begins to rewire your brain. Stanford research on neuroplasticity shows that positive self-talk literally reshapes the neural pathways that influence emotion. None of these are overnight fixes, but together, they build stability. When you give your body light, your mind calm, your brain rhythm, and your heart kindness, mornings stop being something to survive, they become part of your healing. The quiet space where you start to feel like yourself again. I still remember Mark, the 42-year-old man I mentioned earlier. He came to me after months of hopeless mornings, when he couldn't find a single reason to get out of bed. We started small, light, breath, and movement. At first, he simply opened the curtains each morning and sat on his bed, letting sunlight reach his eyes. No affirmations, no forced optimism, just light. A week later, he added one more step, placing his feet on the floor, drinking warm water, taking 3 deep breaths. That was all I asked. By the 4th week, he said he wanted to try walking, just around his backyard. And then something beautiful happened, for the first time in months. He noticed the scent of jasmine in the morning breeze. He told me, voice trembling, I'd forgotten what it feels like to smell. I smiled, because that's when life began to return to him. 3 months later, Mark was back at work, but he told me he never checks his phone before seeing the sunrise. "That's how I keep my mornings for myself," he said. Then there was Julia, a night shift nurse whose circadian rhythm was completely reversed. She once said that daylight felt like punishment. Together, we reset her rhythm, limiting blue light at night, keeping a fixed sleep schedule, and facing real sunlight upon waking. She also began a 5-minute morning journal, not to write positive things, but to release every emotion, even the dark ones. Writing gave her mind room to breathe. 6 weeks later, she smiled as she said she finally felt peace seeing the morning light. Today, she teaches that same practice to her patients. And then came David, a war veteran I'll never forget. Mornings were his battlefield, when memories rushed back like storms. For him, I didn't start with exercise or sunlight, but with stillness, meditation, and breath. At first, he resisted, saying, "I can't sit still for a minute." But one morning, He told me that while sitting quietly on his porch, listening to birds, he felt a small space in his chest begin to fill. 6 months later, David joined a veterans support group, sharing his story with a gentle smile. He said, "Morning depression didn't disappear, it just learned to rise with me." Stories like these aren't rare. Mark, Julia, and David didn't seek miracles or strong medication. They simply learned to befriend the morning instead of fearing it. Science can talk about serotonin, cortisol, and circadian alignment, but no study can quite capture the human moment when eyes brighten, voices soften, and breathing deepens. Because when you begin to care for your morning, you're truly caring for your life. Every positive change starts in that moment, the moment you choose to rise. Even if it's just one small step, that step is a victory of biology, psychology, and spirit. And if you're listening to this and still feel unready, remember, you don't have to defeat depression, you only need to learn to walk with it. Each morning is practice. No morning is perfect, but every one is a promise that you're still here, still capable of beginning again, and that your body still wants to live. When you see morning not as an enemy but as a companion waiting for you, the light changes, softer, warmer, alive. And perhaps that's when true peace begins, the moment your soul finally becomes what it was always meant to be, a peaceful soul. When I look back at the hundreds of patients who've walked through morning depression, there's one thing they all realized: they didn't need a drastic transformation, just small, steady changes. One deeper breath, one earlier ray of sunlight, one gentler word to themselves. Life doesn't change in one magical moment. It changes in those simple seconds when you choose not to let sadness define you. If there's one thing I hope you remember after this video, it's this: you're not broken, you're just tired. You're not weak, you just need time. And yes, you can heal. Your body knows how to restore itself, you just have to listen. Every time you wake up, even when it feels heavy, but still choose to sit up, open the curtains, and take a deep breath, that's when you're already rewiring your brain, teaching your soul how to live again. Morning depression isn't the end, it's an invitation, a call to slow down, to listen to your heartbeat, to notice the light slipping through your window, and to feel the morning air against your skin. When you start cherishing those small things, your natural healing energy begins to awaken. Slowly, mornings stop being something to fear and become something that walks with you, helping you grow stronger, calmer, and more connected to yourself. There's a line I often share with my patients: you can't make the sun rise faster, but you can learn to wait for it with a peaceful heart. The same goes for healing. It doesn't happen overnight, but it begins when you choose to stay with yourself. One morning, one breath, one moment at a time. And one day, when you find yourself smiling naturally in the morning light, that's when you'll know your soul has found its peace again. Thank you for spending your time here with Peaceful Soul today. If this message resonated with you, if it made you feel understood, comforted, or simply allowed you to breathe a little easier, please consider subscribing, so we can continue this journey of healing together. Turn on the notifications. Each week, I'll bring you new insights, science-based reflections, and heartfelt stories to help you not just heal your mind, but also learn to love yourself a little more. And if today you feel fragile, remember this: as long as you're still here, you are stronger than you think. Wishing you a gentle morning, a calm heart, and a truly peaceful soul. Sparkles, stay gentle, stay grounded, and take care of your peaceful soul.